Well, joining me now to talk about this is Chris Weston. He's the Chief Executive of Thames Water. Chris Weston, thanks for joining me this morning. For how long can Thames Water continue to trade without an injection of fresh equity?
So maybe I will answer that question, but maybe the first thing that I should do is just reassure listeners, our customers, that it is very much business as usual at Thames Water, and we will continue to provide services to our customers throughout our region. Maybe a couple of thoughts around that question. First of all, the discussions with Ofwat continue. It is part of the normal PR24 process, as it is called, and that will continue until June this year, where we get to a draft determination, and then on to the end of the year when we'll get to a final determination. And we also announced this morning that we were in a solid financial position, so having £2.4 billion worth of liquidity, and that's enough to see us through until about May in 2025. But the immediate focus is very much on continuing to provide service day in, day out for our customers.
You do have a £190 million loan that falls repayable at the end of next month. As I understand it, if the business is unable to repay its debts, that triggers the special administration regime, does it not?
So that's not quite right. I think you're referring to Kemble Holdings, who are our ultimate parent. The Thames business, which I am chief executive of, is an entirely separate business, and it is ring-fenced from Kemble. So anything that should happen to Kemble has no implications for us as a regulated business. So whatever happens to Kemble at the end of next month, it is not going to have an impact on us, and certainly not result in special administration for Thames Water.
OK. Now, in terms of the injection of fresh equity, you've said today elsewhere that potentially there could be other providers of equity on the scene. Are you actually talking to anyone about that at the moment?
So the way the process will work is that we will carry on these discussions with Ofwat, and that will allow us to get to a point where we have a business plan that is supported by the regulator, and that business plan we can then put in front of our existing shareholders, and they can make a choice as to whether they would be prepared to inject more equity, or indeed we can test it in the market and we can see whether there's an appetite out there from other possible providers of equity, and that is quite a normal process. And so we are not in discussion with anyone else at the moment. We remain focused on running the business, and we also remain in conversation with our current shareholders.
For people who aren't in the weeds of this story, Chris, just explain, if you could please, what is exactly that your shareholders want from Ofwat?
Well, at its simplest, they want a business case that they can invest in that gives them a reasonable return. And our shareholders have not received a dividend since 2017, and under the current business plan that we are discussing with Ofwat, they're not likely to receive one before 2030. So I think that demonstrates a lot of patience. So as they look at that plan and work out whether it is investable, one of the key criteria for them will be that it gives them equity returns that are appropriate for the investment.
So when would that be by then, before 2030?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but there will be a business case that runs from 2025 to 2030, and they will work out what the cash flows look like from that business case that will go beyond 2030, and in the round they will look at it to see if it provides the returns that they require.
It's being widely reported that your shareholders also want the ability to raise bills quite sharply. What is the truth of that?
Yes, I understand that. And the process that we are going through with Ofwat allows Ofwat to assess the asks that we have made for capital investment in that 5-year period. So investing in infrastructure that helps us to continue to provide water, and also the investment we need to protect the environment. And once that business case is landed, that is what then determines the impact on customers' bills. So if you like, it is an iterative process that we work through with the regulator that then determines what those bills look like. And we, as the operator of the company, we want to get to a business case that is in the best interests of customers. It is affordable for them, but it is also financeable for Thames Water and investable for our shareholders. And that, I think, is an absolutely fundamental requirement, given the levels of investment that we, and indeed the whole water industry, are looking for in that 2025 to 2030 period.
It's been widely reported that you're seeking bill increases of up to 40%. Is that a number you recognise?
So I don't think we have been at all secretive about that. The plans that we have put forward, which are very much in accordance with what customers are asking us to do, require an investment of around £20 billion in that 2025 to 2030 period. And that would result in a bill rise of around 40%. And we recognise that at this current moment in time, that could be very, very difficult for people. So at the same time, we are looking at what we can do to protect those that are most vulnerable and can't afford that type of increase. And so we have a tariff that supports those people. There are currently about 320,000 customers on that tariff. And in the next 5-year period, we would expect that number to go up to nearly 500,000 customers being supported through that special tariff.
You've made very clear there that bills need to rise to fund new investment, but that is not how most people are going to see it, is it? They will say this is a business that's been badly run in the past and that bill payers are going to be paying for the mistakes made by previous management.
I mean, I'm not going to comment on what has happened in the past. I'm new into this business and I am just focused on what we need to do going forward. And it is very clear, listening to our customers, that what they value most is high quality, clean drinking water, and that we do all that we can to protect the environment. And those two things are primarily what is driving the investment that we are having to make in our network in that 5-year period. And we have to recognise that as we do that, we are dealing with climate change. I mean, we've seen in February a record fall in rain, and it was beyond anything that we have seen since records began. And our network is not designed to cope with that level of rainfall. And also population growth, seeing a huge increase in demand between now and 2050. So as well as customers' requirements, we're dealing with a changing climate and a population growth. And all of that drives the investment that we absolutely have to do to bring our network up to current standards and in line with expectation of our customers.
I hear what you're saying, Chris, and no one is blaming you personally. You only joined the business in January. But nonetheless, there have been more than £7 billion worth of dividends extracted from this business over the last couple of decades. Surely more of that money could have been put towards future-proofing the business and making it more resilient to cope with the kind of events that you've just described.
And I can understand why there would be that sentiment out there. But I think we also have to recognise the important role that equity providers, shareholders play in providing capital to invest in this network. And they have to earn a reasonable return at the same time. And I'm not commenting on the level of dividends that have been paid in the past, but they play such an important role. They do need some reward and recognition for what they're doing. And I think the way that our shareholders are looking at it, with no dividends since 2017 and nothing likely before 2030, shows the patience and support that they have given to Thames Water.
Do you think Ofwat can realistically accede to the demands of your shareholders without setting a really pretty terrible precedent?
So I'm not sure I would look at it quite like that. We are going through a normal regulatory process. That normal regulatory process sees us put a submission into the regulator. We sit down and we go through that in a huge amount of detail. And that is the cost base, both capital and operating costs, that we need to be able to deliver the outcomes that Ofwat require over the coming years. And so that's a normal regulatory process. There's a huge amount of transparency involved in that. We will get to a draft determination in June and a final determination in December. And so I would characterize it more as following due process to get to the outcome that is most efficient and most effective for all stakeholders.
I don't know whether you're a betting man, Chris, but what are the odds, would you say, of being able to stave off nationalisation or special administration?
I think that's very hypothetical, and if it were to happen, it's a long way away. I am very much focused on providing service to our customers day in, day out, as we always have. That is the most important thing, and that is the message I give to the people in Thames Water. And I have to say, I'm hugely proud of what they do day in, day out, the passion and commitment that I see. And at the same time, I will look at agreeing with Ofwat what a business case looks like that is supportable by customers and our shareholders. And that's what I'm trying to do over the coming months.
Would you remain with the company were it to be nationalised?
That if that were to happen, and it's purely hypothetical, I would be very happy to carry on working within Thames. I've been here 3 months, and I have thoroughly enjoyed those first 3 months. It's a complex and interesting situation, but it is absolutely fascinating what we do. The scale of what we do is quite amazing, and I'm very proud to be leading this company.
Obviously, billions of pounds were brought into the industry for investment post-privatisation, but do you believe the privatised model still works 30 years on?
Cool. Yes, I do recognise the huge amount of capital that has to be invested in both Thames, which is about £20 billion between 2025 and 2030, and in the water industry as a whole in that time period. I think getting on towards £100 billion. I mean, that is a huge quantity of money, and it is money that is needed to keep the water flowing and to manage and clean the waste that is produced by the population of the United Kingdom. And I think the private sector, the public markets, have a big role to play in being able to finance that, both through the debt markets and also through equity. So that quantity of money, I think, can be managed by those markets as long as the returns are there for those investors. So I absolutely believe there is a role for the private sector to play in the water industry.
And just to sum up, Chris, I mean, if I've understood you correctly, you remain reasonably confident that eventually some sort of agreement is going to be reached with Ofwat.
Yeah, absolutely, that is the case. And we will continue to work with them alongside delivering our service day in, day out. And I have no doubt at some point, draft determination or final determination, we will get to a business plan that can be supported.
And have you heard from ministers at all in this? We know that the Prime Minister's special advisor is involved in these negotiations. Have you thought about an appeal over the heads of Ofwat directly to the government?
Well, so if you'll forgive me, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of the various stakeholders that are involved in this. It's sufficient to say that over the last few months that I have been in post, we have discussed the situation with all sorts of people, but the primary interface is with Ofwat. They are the regulator. We are doing a lot of work and working constructively with them to try and land a business case that is investable and acceptable to our customers.
OK, Chris Weston, we do appreciate you joining us today. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.